the air in Nova City always hummed. It was the sound of ambition, a symphony of silent electric vehicles, whirring construction drones, and the faint, omnipresent thrum of the city's massive subterranean data servers. Nova City wasn't just a place, it was a promise, the world's first fully integrated smart metropolis, a beacon of sustainable technology and utopian living. Or so the brochures claimed. For Marcus Thorne, a man whose quiet demeanor belied a mind as sharp as a diamond cutter, it was simply another job site. A very, very complicated one. Marcus was an auditor, but not the kind that pored over spreadsheets. He audited integrity, structural, systemic, and, increasingly, human. He was the best in the world at finding the cracks before they became chasms. Today, dressed in unassuming charcoal work pants, a soft, well-worn denim shirt, and scuffed work boots, he looked more like a contemplative construction foreman than the man whose signature could greenlight or condemn multi-billion-dollar projects. He'd just flown in on a red-eye, and comfort trumped corporate attire for his initial, unannounced walkthrough. His instructions were clear: observe, assess, and remain incognito until his official meeting with the city's lead developer, Evelyn Hayes, the next morning. He stood near the newly inaugurated Transit Hub Plaza, a marvel of flowing architecture and holographic displays, watching the city's inhabitants glide by. His focus, however, was on the subtle vibrations beneath his feet, the resonance of the plasteel supports, the almost imperceptible sway of the pedestrian skybridges. He carried a small, unassuming satchel containing not a laptop, but a highly specialized, custom-built sensor array that looked more like a high-end tablet. It was currently taking passive readings, its screen dark. "You there? Hold it!" The voice was harsh, amplified, cutting through the plaza's curated ambient sounds like a rusty saw. Marcus turned. Approaching him was a man whose uniform, a crisp, militaristic black with silver piping, screamed authority. He was barrel-chested, with a florid face and eyes like chips of ice. A name tag read Miller, head of security. Two more guards, similarly attired but younger and more nervous, flanked him like attack dogs on a short leash. "Yes?" Marcus asked, his voice calm, neutral. Miller stopped a foot away, his personal space invasion clearly intentional. "What do you think you're doing, loitering around here? This isn't a public park for vagrants." His eyes raked over Marcus's attire with open disdain. "I'm observing," Marcus replied, keeping his tone even. "Observing what?" Miller sneered. "Plotting some mischief? Taking pictures for some anarchist blog? Let me see some ID. City resident pass. Visitor credentials. Something." Marcus met his gaze. "I'm an invited guest. My official credentials will be processed tomorrow morning. I'm here for a preliminary site assessment." Miller laughed, a short, barking sound. "Invited guest? Dressed like that? For a site assessment? Son, I've heard better lies from teenagers trying to sneak into the VR arcades. You look like you crawled out from under a maglev train. What's in the bag?" He gestured sharply with his chin. "It's professional equipment," Marcus stated, not moving to open it. "Oh, I'll bet it is," Miller said, his voice dripping sarcasm. "Professional troublemaking equipment. Open the bag. Now." The two younger guards shifted, their hands moving towards their utility belts. The plaza wasn't crowded, but a few passers-by had slowed, their curiosity piqued by the confrontation. Marcus sighed internally. This was precisely the kind of interaction he preferred to avoid. His work relied on anonymity until the formal stages. "Look, officer. It's head of security Miller to you, pal. And I'm losing my patience." Miller's face was reddening. He clearly enjoyed this, the public display of his power. "You're in a restricted access zone of a high-security development. You fit the profile of a potential subversive element. Either you cooperate, or we do this the hard way. There's no need for this to escalate, Marcus said, his voice still quiet but with an underlying firmness. If you'll allow me to make a call, I can clear this up immediately. I'm here at the invitation of Ms. Evelyn Hayes. Mentioning the city's chief architect and lead developer, a name synonymous with Nova City itself, usually had an immediate effect. Not on Miller. He smirked. Ms. Hayes? Oh, you're on a first-name basis with the Queen of Nova City now, are you? Sure. And I'm the King of Mars. Funny how every lowlife we pick up suddenly knows someone important. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a menacing growl. I think you're a liar. And I think you're here to cause trouble. Maybe a little corporate espionage? Or just some good old-fashioned vandalism. Marcus felt a familiar weariness. It wasn't the first time his appearance had led to such assumptions. I assure you, I am not. We'll see about that. Miller snapped his fingers. Cuff him. And confiscate that bag. We'll take a look at his professional equipment down at Central Security. The two younger guards hesitated for a split second, perhaps sensing the overreach, but a glare from Miller had them moving. Marcus didn't resist as they roughly pulled his arms behind his back, the cold metal of the restraints clicking shut. He winced, not from pain, but from the sheer, unnecessary indignity of it. The few onlookers were now openly staring, some pulling out their phones. What's your name, smart guy? Miller demanded, his face close to Marcus's. Marcus Thorne. Well, Marcus Thorne, Miller said, patting Marcus's satchel, which one of the guards now held. You're having a very bad day. We're going to find out exactly who you are and what you're really up to. And trust me, when I'm done with you, you'll wish you'd never set foot in Nova City. He gestured towards a waiting security vehicle, a sleek, black pod-like car. Take him to holding cell 3. I want him processed. Full scan. And get that bag to forensics. I want to know what's on that device. As Marcus was led away, the image of his quiet dignity contrasting sharply with Miller's aggressive posturing was already being uploaded to Nova City's internal social feeds by the onlookers. He caught the eye of a young woman with bright pink hair who was filming, her expression a mixture of shock and anger. He gave a minute, almost imperceptible nod. Documentation was always useful. In the sterile, windowless holding cell, Marcus sat on a hard plastic bench. They'd taken his belt, his shoelaces, and, most critically, his satchel. He wasn't worried about what they'd find on the device. It was encrypted with layers of security that would take a state-level agency weeks to crack. What worried him was the delay. His preliminary sweep was time-sensitive. Certain geothermal and atmospheric pressures were optimal for his readings only during this specific 24-hour window. He requested his phone call. The guard on duty, a young man who looked barely out of his teens and clearly uncomfortable with the situation, relayed the request. The answer came back via the intercom, Miller's voice booming. Phone call? He's lucky he's not getting a cavity search. No calls until we verify his identity. And tell Mr. Thorne that resisting a security directive in Nova City carries a mandatory 5-year sentence in the Orbital Correctional Facility. Maybe that'll loosen his tongue. Marcus leaned his head back against the cold wall. This was escalating in a way that was both predictable and dangerous. Miller was a bully, drunk on his little kingdom's power. But he was also a fool, and fools with power were the most dangerous kind. He needed to reach Evelyn Hayes. Not just for his own sake, but for the project's. If his initial, subtle readings were even remotely accurate, Nova City had a very big, very expensive problem brewing deep within its foundations, a problem that Miller's grandstanding was now actively preventing him from assessing. Meanwhile, Miller was in his office, the confiscated satchel on his desk. He picked up the dark, sleek device. It was surprisingly heavy, cool to the touch, no obvious ports or buttons. Forensics my foot, he muttered. He'd seen these kinds of things before, back when he was a beat cop. Usually drug paraphernalia or some kind of homebrewed hacking tool. He pressed what looked like a small indentation on the side. The device remained inert. He shook it. Nothing. Frustrated, he slammed it down on his desk. Piece of junk. His comlink buzzed. It was one of his junior officers. Sir, we've run the name Marcus Thorne through the resident and visitor database. Nothing. No official record of him in Nova City. Miller grinned. I knew it. Told you he was a ghost. What about criminal databases? Checking now, sir. Interpol, FBI, nothing major. A few minor traffic violations, sealed juvenile record, wait. Sir, there's a flag here. A level gamma advisory. It just says do not detain. Do not interfere. Contact liaison immediately. There's a secure number. Miller scoffed. Level gamma? Sounds like something out of a comic book. Probably some bureaucratic nonsense. Liaison for what? The Pigeon Fanciers Society? Ignore it. He's a nobody trying to bluff his way in. Keep digging. I want something I can charge him with by end of shift. He hung up, feeling a surge of satisfaction. He'd caught a live one. This Marcus Thorne was clearly trying to infiltrate the city. Maybe he was an eco-terrorist or a corporate spy sent by a rival developer. This could be big. This could be the bust that finally got him the recognition he deserved, the respect that had eluded him his entire career. He imagined the headlines, Head of Security thwarts major threat to Nova City. He smiled. Yes, this was going to be a very good day for him. He had no idea that the Level Gamma advisory was linked to something called the Aurora Protocol, a highly classified international agreement concerning individuals whose work was deemed critical to global infrastructure stability. He also didn't know that the young woman with pink hair, a citizen journalist named Anya Sharma, had just uploaded her unedited footage of Marcus's arrest to a secure server outside Nova City's jurisdiction, tagging Evelyn Hayes and 3 major international news outlets. The hum of Nova City continued, oblivious. But deep within its core, a different kind of vibration was starting. The tremors of a reckoning. And Head of Security Miller, and his arrogance, was standing right at the epicenter. The minutes in the holding cell stretched into an hour, then 2. Marcus practiced a mental exercise he'd learned during a hostile environment training course years ago, cataloging the sounds. The faint whir of the ventilation, the distant electronic chime of a transport arriving at the hub, the almost inaudible click of the cell's magnetic lock engaging and disengaging as guards passed. Each sound was a data point. He was calm, but a cold knot of urgency was tightening in his chest. The optimal window for his passive scans was closing. Meanwhile, Anya Sharma's footage was ricocheting through the digital stratosphere. Evelyn Hayes, a formidable black woman whose name was as synonymous with Nova City as its gleaming towers, was in a critical budget meeting with international investors when her private comm link, reserved for true emergencies, began to vibrate insistently. She excused herself, her brow furrowed. The message was from her chief of staff, marked urgent, with a direct link to Anya's video stream. Evelyn watched the grainy footage on her wrist-mounted display. She saw the plaza, the security uniforms, and then she saw Marcus Thorne, her Marcus Thorne, the quiet genius she had personally headhunted, the man whose expertise was legendary in the world of hypercomplex engineering, being manhandled and cuffed. Her blood ran cold, then hot with a furious anger that momentarily stole her breath. She recognized Miller, the puffed-up tyrant she'd inherited as head of security from a subcontracted firm, a man she already had serious reservations about. "Get me Miller," she bid out to her chief of staff, her voice dangerously low. "Now. And get a tactical team to holding cell 3 in the transit hub. Non-aggressive. My authorization." Top priority. Tell them Mr. Thorne is a guest of the city, under my personal protection. Back in his office, Miller was feeling increasingly pleased with himself. He'd had his team run facial recognition against every known operative of rival corporations and eco-activist groups. No matches. This Thorne was a ghost, which, in Miller's mind, only confirmed his guilt. He was probably using a fake identity. He was about to authorize a more persuasive interrogation when his direct line to Evelyn Hayes's office lit up. He straightened his tunic, a self-important smile playing on his lips. This was it. Miss Hayes was probably calling to commend him on his vigilance. Miller here, he answered, his voice oozing confidence. Mr. Miller, Evelyn Hayes's voice was pure ice, devoid of any warmth. You have one of my city's most vital assets currently in your custody. You will release Mr. Marcus Thorne immediately and unconditionally. You will personally escort him to my office. And you will bring his confiscated equipment, untouched. Am I clear? Miller's smile faltered. Miss Hayes, with all due respect, this man, Thorne, he's a security risk. No credentials, suspicious equipment, fits the profile. Mr. Miller, Evelyn cut him off, her voice now carrying a razor's edge. The only security risk I'm currently aware of is a head of security who is too incompetent to recognize a level Gamma priority guest and too arrogant to follow a direct order from the city's chief developer. You have 5 minutes to have Mr. Thorne in my office. If he is not here, with a sincere apology already drafted in your mind, the next call you receive will be from the board of your employing company, informing you of your immediate termination. And trust me, that will be the least of your concerns. The line went dead. Miller stared at the silent comm link, his face paling. Level Gamma? Evelyn Hayes personally protecting this vagrant? His mind reeled. He'd made a mistake. A colossal mistake. Panic began to claw at his throat. He barked orders into his intercom, his voice suddenly several octaves higher. Get Thorne out of holding cell 3. Now. Bring him to me. And that bag. Where's that blasted bag? Marcus was surprised when the cell door hissed open and 2 different guards, their faces pale and anxious, almost tripped over themselves to apologize. Mr. Thorne, sir, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Head of Security Miller requests your presence immediately. Please, come with us. They practically carried his satchel for him. As he was escorted through the security station, he saw Miller, his face ashen, his earlier bluster completely gone. Miller couldn't meet his eyes. Mr. Thorne, a profound apology, miscommunication, if you'll just come with me. The ride to Evelyn Hayes's office suite, located at the very top of Nova City's central spire, was made in excruciating silence. When they arrived, Evelyn was waiting. She stood, tall and imposing, her expression unreadable. Behind her, on a massive holographic screen, Anya Sharma's video was playing on a loop. Marcus, Evelyn said, her voice softening as she addressed him, ignoring Miller completely for a moment. Are you all right? Did these individuals harm you? I'm fine, Evelyn. Annoyed. Delayed. But fine, Marcus replied, his gaze steady. Evelyn nodded, then turned her attention to Miller, her eyes like chips of obsidian. Mr. Miller. Explain yourself. Miller stammered, launching into a rambling, incoherent defense about protocols, suspicious behavior, and the pressures of his job. Evelyn listened, her arms crossed, her expression growing colder with every word. When he finally trailed off, she spoke. Mr. Miller, do you have any idea who Marcus Thorne is? Miller shook his head dumbly. Marcus Thorne, Evelyn announced, her voice resonating with authority, is the chief auditor for the Aurora Protocol. He is arguably the foremost expert on subterranean structural mechanics and systemic integrity for smart city infrastructures on this planet. He is here, at the personal request of our primary international investors and the Global Stability Council, to conduct the final, confidential safety and integrity audit of Nova City. His report, Mr. Miller, determines whether this multi-trillion-dollar city receives its final operational certification and its next stage of sovereign funding. That suspicious equipment you so cavalierly confiscated is a unique, proprietary sensor array worth more than your entire security firm, designed to detect geological and structural anomalies that no other system can. Anomalies, I might add, that could compromise the safety of every single inhabitant of the city. Miller looked like he'd been punched in the gut. His jaw hung open. The color had drained completely from his face. Evelyn wasn't finished. The level Gamma advisory your officers so helpfully ignored? It's an international designation for individuals of critical global importance. Interfering with their work is considered an act that jeopardizes international stability. You didn't just harass a citizen, Mr. Miller. You potentially endangered this entire project and violated an international protocol. She gestured to the screen. And you did it all so publicly. Congratulations. Your incompetence is now viral. She picked up her datapad. I've already spoken with the CEO of your company. He sends his deepest apologies. And his confirmation that your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Nova City is also severing its contract with your firm. Furthermore, Mr. Thorne is well within his rights to press charges for unlawful detainment, harassment, and defamation. Given the international implications, I suspect several global agencies will also be very interested in having a chat with you. Miller swayed, looking like he might collapse. The two guards who had accompanied him were trying to make themselves invisible. Security, Evelyn said calmly into her comlink. Two of her own elite internal security officers, dressed in discreet but clearly authoritative attire, entered the office. Please escort Mr. Miller off the premises. He is no longer authorized to be in Nova City. Ensure he collects his personal belongings and nothing else. As the disgraced Miller was led away, a broken man, Marcus finally spoke. Evelyn, the delay has been problematic. My optimal reading window for the geothermal stress assessment has passed. Evelyn's expression shifted to one of deep concern. What does that mean, Marcus? It means, Marcus said, opening his satchel and activating the sensor array, its screen now glowing with complex data streams, that my preliminary passive readings, the ones I was taking before your head of security so kindly interrupted me, show a significant gravimetric anomaly beneath the Alpha Sector Foundation pylons. An anomaly that is rapidly increasing in variance. He looked at her, his eyes serious. Nova City has a very big problem, Evelyn. A foundational one. And we've just lost several critical hours to address it. Evelyn Hayes stared at the data streams, then at Marcus. The arrogance of one man had not only caused a personal injustice but had also threatened the very dream she had spent her life building. The fight to save Nova City had just begun, and it would require all of Marcus Thorne's genius and all of her resolve. The hum of the city outside suddenly sounded less like ambition and more like a ticking clock. The fallout for Miller was swift and absolute. His career was over. His company was crippled by the scandal. But for Marcus and Evelyn, the real work was just starting. They raced against time, using Marcus's unparalleled expertise to diagnose and mitigate the foundational flaw. It was a crisis averted, but one that served as a stark reminder: true integrity, whether in structures or in people, is the only foundation that truly lasts. Nova City would survive, and it would learn. And Marcus Thorne, the quiet auditor, would continue his work, a silent guardian ensuring the world's grandest dreams were built on solid ground, not on the shifting sands of prejudice and arrogance.